tonight we have Robert Reyes with Startup Circle.
Hello.
Hello. Sharing his journey with you. I want to thank Cheryl with Temecula Valley Entrepreneurs Exchange in the city of Temecula. She does a great job of hosting the events for TriTech. I'm Jay Goff with TriTech SBDC. We're a small business development center. And what we do is we help early stage, high growth companies get their act together so that when they get in front of investors, they don't make such a mess. Because usually when people go to pitch an investor, they tell them all about their baby. And the investor's like, I don't care about your baby, I want to know what your baby can do for me. And so what we do is help them craft a story. We go through their business plan, we look at their management. We try and make it so that somebody like Robert sits down and you give them a pitch and he goes, this sounds great, and he starts asking questions, you can get engagement. A lot of times by the third or fourth slide, the investors are going, well, I don't know what he's talking about, it's way over my head, and I'll pass, I'll just be polite and tell them, very interesting, and we'll get back to you later, and that never happens. I wanted to ask you if anyone knows what 1 million cups is. Mr. Foley, you win a cup. 1 million cups is a program that we put on every Wednesday morning. And it's a really great program. It's sponsored by the Kauffman Foundation. And if you don't know them, you should look it up. It's entrepreneur.org. And Kauffman Foundation is a huge sponsor of all kinds of things entrepreneurial. Have you ever heard of Startup Digest? Has anybody heard of that? There we go. Ken wins. I'm not going to give you one.
I know. Don't. I'd rather somebody else get it.
Okay, so Startup Digest is another Kauffman program. And if you go to startupdigest.com and you sign up for Riverside County, you'll get a weekly email that tells you all the events going on in this area that have stuff for startups. So this event was on Startup. A lot of Robert's things at Startup Circle show up on Startup Digest. We have events in Riverside. We have events all over the place. And so it's a great way to keep track of what's going on in the area. StartupDigest.com, Riverside County. And then finally, I'm also the executive director of a group called InSoCal Connect. And we're working with all the cities in the area to try and really raise the level of entrepreneurship in our area. So we put on things like this, we put on thought leadership series. We have one coming up March 11th where we have a Nobel Prize winner coming to Riverside to talk about sustainability. And we have some programs like Springboard that Ken's a member of right now that's a structured mentorship program that helps companies really own their business. So there's a lot of resources here. That's what I'm trying to get to. The Temecula Valley Entrepreneurs Exchange has all kinds of resources from the Inland Empire SBDC to the EDC to TriTech SBDC. We're here to help you guys, so you're not alone. And that's probably the best message I can give you. So once again, thanks a lot. Without any further ado, Mr. Reyes.
Hi. Wow, the lights went off. It was like, oh, what happened? So good afternoon, evening. So I appreciate coming out here and just listening to me. But normally what I like to do when I get a room like this, I like to kind of also hear from you a little bit. So I always like to learn about my audience and who are the folks in the audience. So I'll give you some background on me, and thank you for putting this together and talking a little about me. And I'll share with you guys my experience and my journey in entrepreneurship and some of the things that I'm doing now and how I got here. But first I'd like to see, just in general terms, how many entrepreneurs we have in the room, or people that are actively right now building a business. See, and now when I mention actively building that business, are you guys doing that full-time right now, or you're working and trying to build that business? I want to see the hands up again. Part-time. So most of you guys are part-time right now, not full-time? So who are the full-time entrepreneurs right now? See, 3, 4, 5, okay, great. And then I want to see the ones that are doing it part-time. I got it. Okay, perfect. So I got some full-time going crazy right now. Oh my gosh, how do we make this work? People that have a day job and trying to do the moonlighting, figure out the entrepreneurial side. And then the rest of the folks here in the audience, let's see, can you guys just let me know, you guys tonight, are you looking for more just insight into entrepreneurship, or are you actively selling into entrepreneurship? So just raise your hands if you're actively trying to sell to entrepreneurs. If that's kind of what you're here to kind of meet or connect. No? One? Okay, in the back. And then the rest of the audience, are you guys just here just to kind of learn a little about entrepreneurship?
Yes.
Yes?
We're
Kinda,
students.
what's that?
We're business students
So
upstairs.
I got students. All right, great. All right, students. And what kind of degrees? Just shout them out.
Business.
Business?
For
Okay.
now.
For now, yeah.
For now. We'll see what happens. Great. Well, thanks for sharing. So at least I give you said students. I got some entrepreneurs. I got some also the part-time entrepreneurs. Great. So I'll give you back a little bit back into my journey. So I went to school down at USD. I'm a USD alum, the Toreros, and I've got an undergrad in accounting, very exciting degree, and supply chain management. So when I graduated, when I was graduating my senior year, I realized I took a couple of internships, and I went into the big firms back then that were doing accounting, was 8 back then, and I realized that I was going, this is a terrible place for me. I am not an accountant. I spent 4 years studying for that business, and I don't want to do that. So I realized that I had to do something else, and then I got into something called supply chain. And what that helped me do is that I was able to get into really high-tech industries. And that really out of school, I was very fortunate that I was able to work in aerospace, lasers, satellites, missiles, and get into more the negotiating and business side of stuff. I got into also semiconductor, I got into life sciences, really exciting stuff that gave me a good background into how big businesses was really performed and done. In addition, my family always had their own businesses, and I grew up in Mexico until I was 16, and then my family moved to San Diego, Carlsbad. So I grew up with a very entrepreneurial family. We had our own businesses, and my dad grew up to a pretty high level of that. So growing up, I always knew what have your own business. But I went into corporations to see how they did it in the U.S. And then at one point in 1999, 2000, a good friend of mine in college called me, a Swedish guy. We played soccer together. And he says, you need to come out to Stockholm. We got something really exciting going on. I think you'd be a great guy to help us build this business. And back then, what was happening is, in the US, we still were getting comfortable with transferring documentation over the internet. So online banking was something that we were like, woo, really scared about. Or also transferring medical records over the internet. So transferring anything like that over the internet was just, and even today, still kind of a difficult thing, but it's more comfortable now. Back then, it was unheard of. Europe was already doing that a lot. A lot of countries in Scandinavia were doing that kind of technology. So we went out there and we built a team of about 12 people. 7 of those were programmers in Estonia. So I would be in Stockholm, and then we would fly to Tallinn, which is Estonia, and build the platform. And we built over 1.5 years a platform that actually securely, and in the US is a regulation that is called HIPAA. And you have to be HIPAA compliant to be able to protect the information. So we built that what we call a working mule or prototype that we built in 1.5 years, tested out, and then actually brought it to the US and sold it to a company in the East Coast. So that came back and I went, wow, 1.5 years, really intense. We worked Monday through Sunday, maybe 2 days off during the month, but we just worked real hard. It was a lot of fun. It didn't feel like work. I was hooked. I was going, this is awesome. What a journey. You know, go over to Europe, figure that out. Came back and I was actually up in Ventura County in Westlake Village. And for a while, started kind of dabbling into a lot of different things. And life sciences, again, was really my passion, and started looking at e-healthcare. So San Diego came calling again, just kind of home. And then I came back here in 2006, and I was looking at doing a couple of companies. So one of the things that's interesting about Temecula, I'll tell you how I ended up here. But when I came down to San Diego, there was a startup that I was working with there. And then there was a group here in Temecula, actually, a couple of guys that were starting a business here. And both of them were actually in the they were salespeople, they were not technologists. And what they were creating, if you guys seen when American Idol was doing text for your favorite person. So back then, actually what they call mobile campaigns were not, but again, were new in the US. There was nothing that was done before. So we started bringing in mobile campaigns. And what these guys did that was very unique at the time, they were selling airtime. Commercials on television say, hey, participate in this thing and text to this number. And they were selling advertisement. And they had this idea, if we can do this platforms through the mobile side, we can make a ton of money. So I actually invested in their company and started kind of working with them building that. And I'm telling you that story because you hear about all the success things. So I went from a pretty successful exit with a healthcare side, and here in Temecula I got into a mobile platform, and it was a tremendous failure. It was terrible. Lost a ton of money. Was very surprised how I first put the money in, and learned a lot from that experience. And the main learning that I have from that is that when I came into it, the team, actually the folks that were doing the actual business, were not fully committed. And so what I can tell you, they had a part-time job, and they had part-time in the entrepreneurial side. And at the time when I came in with the money and said, hey, let's go, this is how you got to do it, they were still not 100% dedicating the effort to the business. And when it started getting tough, then the wheels fell off. And so kind of one of the initial messages I want to tell you is that I completely encourage folks to moonlight it, start the entrepreneurial business, not full-time if you can't afford it right now because of your lifestyle, but you got to have a point. And everybody needs to know that at what point you have to do it full-time. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So realize that, because that's an experience that I had literally in this town, and it was a pretty unique experience to learn from that. So fast forwarding you, right now to this date, I've invested or being part of the founding team or being an active member of 17 companies that I in the past have invested into or participated in and sold. Out of those 17 companies, 4 made me money. So again, when you think about that, and some I broke even, some I lost. But I want to kind of share with you the reality of entrepreneurship. It is super exciting, it's awesome, but you're going to have a lot of highs, a lot of lows. And at the end is really the people you get into that business with. That's really at the end. You hear that story, but for me it's critically important, the team that you're around with, the partners, the people that you associate with. So that's a little my background. I went into that, started the businesses, came to San Diego in '06. And one of the things that happened for me is that I was trying to connect with the entrepreneurial minds in San Diego. And I was living in close to La Jolla. And I was looking for just exciting ideas. And I couldn't find a place where people were getting together in San Diego. And so I got asked to run a community called San Diego Young Entrepreneurs. And at the time, we were about 350 members. And then at that time, I was meeting some people kept asking how young you have to be to join, and then evolve it to what we call Startup Circle now, and that's 5,000 members strong now, and it's been going on since '06. We first were just like this, just bringing people together, and my hidden agenda is that I don't want to get pitched for money, because that's normally, I get a lot of bullshit through that. I just want the real scoop. I've yet to have a pitch that tells me that that's the worst business and there's a lot of risk. Everybody tells you it's the best business. We got to make a ton of money, no one's doing it. So I'd rather be in an informal environment and just understand the passion behind the entrepreneur. Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to make that difference? What's important about that business? And so now I'll get more into the philosophy about the business again that I succeeded on. There was definitely a higher purpose and a higher value for me. That the money was important, but it was not the driver. They had definitely a higher purpose than why we were doing that business. So it evolved. 5,000 folks strong now. I have actually an arm there that I invest into right now, the Startup Circle Fund. We're invested in 10 companies right now, and that is agnostic into the industry. I have investments in farming. It has technology associated with that, but it's farming. I've got online activities. I got hardware as well involved to that. And then I'm also a partner into something that is called Plug and Play Tech Center. And part of my journey in San Diego, when I came in, I was meeting the young entrepreneurs, and I asked, what do you guys need? As an entrepreneur, what do you need? And what do you guys think is the first answer when I ask entrepreneurs, what do you need? Money, right? Everybody's going like, I need cash, and there's no money in town. There's zero money in San Diego. It's dead. And it is true. San Diego was known as Death Valley for investment, especially 4 years ago. You could not get a check out of anybody in San Diego. Actually, 2007 or so, the market had crashed. Investors were putting zero money. Even banks were not lending. And so I came in and I started putting money into companies real quick at 4 or 5. So people started flocking, and I was like, oh my God, because I didn't have as much resources. Because once you get to a point in your business, you need to start putting in $5 million, $10 million. And you get a nice pool of investors to put that kind of money together to raise that business. So I kept taking businesses to the Bay. I'll be like, have a great network. Let's go up to San Francisco because that's where it's a lot of money. And it is in the world. Dollar to dollar, still the Bay Area is the place to get, for a technology company, get funding. If you're doing software tech, Silicon Valley, by far, in the world is where most of the money is getting exchanged right now and funded. So I was taking companies up there. One of my buddies that I met is one of the guys that started Plug and Play in the Bay Area. There's 2 guys, Saeed Amidi and Jojo Flores. And I would out there, would take my companies there and get funding. What they created 3 locations in the Bay. One is about 30,000 square feet. It's a huge facility. It's a 3-level building. We got there about over 250 startups at all times working. 24/7, it's open. We got a cafeteria. We got over 250 corporate partners that actually pay to be at this center, or one of our centers in Sunnyvale specifically. And what you guys are seeing there, one of the companies that started at this center is called Lending Club. And how many of you guys heard of Lending Club? A few folks. So the ones that haven't heard about Lending Club, if I click here real quickly, Lending Club last year was considered one of the biggest IPOs when you think about what happened there. They generated $800 million in their IPO. And this guy started there on a center with 2 people. And we just watched that company go boom, boom, boom. Another company that came out of there also was PayPal. So PayPal was another big piece of this piece. When I got involved, I started getting involved with Plug and Play in 2009. Right around with a lot of this activity started really heating up. And one of the things is that I really love San Diego and love this region. And I kept saying, it kind of sucks that we have to always go up to the Bay, and the Bay is so awesome, but you know what, I like doing stuff, and I'm building my businesses here. I'm not having to move to the Bay. I just fly, take Southwest, 45 minutes, I'm there. So started talking to these guys and said, hey, San Diego, at the time was San Diego, and why you guys see me here now in Temecula, is that this region has huge, not just potential, there's a lot of awesome stuff happening right now. Awesome. I'm like thrilled that I'm here in this area, and when I think about Orange County, Riverside County, San Diego, and a little bit towards El Centro area, there's so much happening right now in different kinds of areas that we're going to become a pretty strong area right now in entrepreneurship from my perspective. And so I convinced them, says, hey, let's put some money on the table, and let's create a Plug and Play San Diego fund. And let's start putting money into these companies in San Diego. At the time, that was the idea. Right now, actually, we funded one company here at this center, and it's called Beaming. So I met them here. I was part of the group here with Cheryl. And I started looking at the startups on the other side, and invited a couple of them to come and pitch. And we selected Beaming as one of those companies that we took through our process and our program, and we put them in the bag. So we've invested in 15 companies to date in San Diego, but they're not all San Diego companies. We got 3 companies that from Canada flew down to San Diego to participate in our program. We got 2 from Mexico, 1 from Israel. So we got, it's not exclusive to San Diego, but that's where we're running most of the activity today. So Plug and Play now has become really a global activity. There's now not just a San Diego offshoot. There's offshoots in Germany now, Berlin, we're in Poland, Canada, so it's a huge network. Now, the thing about Plug and Play, we got a $1.2 billion fund that we're funding companies from. And we have different layers on how we invest specifically in technology companies. So when you think about Plug and Play, it's a technology-focused activity. Even though we're not saying 100% software, we see software with hardware now. There has to be a strong software component. So what you see me doing today is propagating and really supporting entrepreneurship for me for the region. That's my current passion now and my goal. After, like I said, 16 plus companies, plus the ones we're invested into, for me, what I'm excited about is just come across people that want to innovate and truly in their mind, in some in reality, changed the world. We've seen things that have really changed the world, and you go, wow, from one couple of people crazy enough to do it. And that's what gets me excited about it, and when I go, yes, you can do it, but it's not going to be easy. And the business that you started today is going to be entirely different probably 3 years from now. And all these companies, when we first met them, when they first pitched us and we gave them money to where they actually went IPO, completely different business. So plug and play again, we have 4 verticals. So we have one that is IoT. You guys know what IoT is? A few folks. Oh, IoT is Internet of Things. And that's one of the hot areas right now that connects everything. So what you see are people are creating code in hardware. So the lights now speak to software and computers. So you can actually control lights, control air conditioning, control everything around you for the most part. And that's a very hot area right now that a lot of people are innovating in many different ways. The other one we're doing is automotive. And you guys have heard of the self-driving vehicle, right? So a ton of different companies in the auto industry are investing millions of dollars in technology in software companies because sensors speaking to software and how all these cars are interacting and interacting with other things is a huge area. So just know investment is heavy in IoT, Internet of Things, what we call fintech, so finance technology. So things that are happening online. So Lending Club, what Lending Club does is literally aggregating a number of folks to create a big pool of money. Think of it like a bank, but I go into Lending Club and they match literally lenders with people that need a loan. And that transaction there's what they make money on that. And that became a huge business. There's another one that you haven't heard about, and probably the name will evolve. We also are extremely excited about in the fintech world. It's called Credit Sesame. And we think that's also going to be like a Lending Club. And it's up and coming. It's right now worth about probably $50 million. When we started, they were worth maybe $1 million. And what they're doing is they're literally taking people, looking at their credit score, and matching you with credit cards and finance planning. And they make money in the back end as they're matching people with credit cards. So fintech, that's an example of the companies that we're looking at in the fintech world. And then the last one is what we call e-retail. So e-retail is huge right now as well. And some of the things that we do, we have, and I encourage you, 4 times a year, we have something what we call Super Expos in Sunnyvale. And I'm going to start doing Super Expos in San Diego. So if you guys want to participate, come and see, you're more than welcome to see. Go to the Plug and Play site or the Startup Circle site, you'll see that. And I'll tell you about some of the things we're doing there. But what's going on with e-retail, right now 3D imaging or virtual reality is huge right now on it. And making it very basic for you to do. So I'll give you an example. So everybody knows of IKEA, right? So one of the companies that we found, this company that came from Estonia into Sunnyvale, and they pitched us this tag. What they're doing, they're taking the online catalog of IKEA, taking all the images and the content, with their software, they're piloting a way that you can take your iPhone and look at that space real time, and then imagery in post, a couch, a chair, in real time you can see it like how it would look in your space. And now they're creating certain things that you can actually go into if you're buying a home, and you can walk into the space and see it furnished and see it all at specific levels of design. Incredible stuff, and what's awesome about it is really cost effective. It doesn't cost you a lot to do that now with the software and the computing power that we're having now in these things. Well, that's what's enabling a lot of the stuff. The computing power that's happening now is incredible. So you'll see more and more of that. So those are kind of the 4 major verticals that we're putting money. We're putting money in other things. Drones as well has been something interesting we're dabbling into. Where you think about 4 verticals. That's there. And what we do when you get into those verticals, we do 2 things that we're very unique on the plug and play and the startup circle model. For me is, I mentioned earlier about people saying, I want money. I need money as an entrepreneur. And in reality, you need the money, but you need the money at the right time. I learned for myself, if I got money too early, I actually wasted the money. I really didn't know what to do with it. So if you tell me the entrepreneur says, I need $2 million and I'm going to kick ass, and if you haven't gotten to the right level that I give you that money, and you don't have the experience of where you need to put that money into, you're going to spend it into either real estate, into certain things that you know are not going to actually build your business. And we've seen that time and time again. So we're really watching to say how focused is that entrepreneur into what they're going to do with those resources they're given. It's about a timing thing. But the critical thing that we do is that we connect the entrepreneur with actually a strong client, a client that's going to validate the technology. So when you see about the people, our partners, and the companies that we got behind this, how we as investors, when you talk about a lot of the different investors that we've, how do we kind of hedge our risk, how do we minimize our risk, is that you see all these people, you think Allstate, BlackBerry, Chrysler. So what happens is what we do with all these different companies, remember they pay us to actually for us to give them access to our companies and our technology. And what we do, what is unique, as you can see a lot of the automotives are looking for tech, you see some they're looking into electronics, we have added Target, we got retailer people and more. We got right now over 250. And what happens is we ask them this question: what is the problem you're trying to solve in your industry? And they tell us we have all these issues, we want to engage consumers, we want to engage, transactions. And what we're doing is that we're exposing those companies to our startups. And that connection, when they see something that they really like, and by us validating that we've put money into that company and we're guiding that effort, they actually create what they call a first trial with a lot of the startups. And most of the time what I say what's going to make a company successful is that first client. That first client that is going to really validate the tech. And to me that's even more important than any funding you can take, because when you have an investor coming to you, and I'll ask the entrepreneur, so when you're pitching an investor, what is the normal thing, traditional thing an investor asks of you? So if you're pitching me for money, normally what is my concern in giving you money?
What's your customer base or what's your team?
Basically that's two of the things. Traction, right? What is your traction in the marketplace? If you had a little doll and you pull the little string in the back of investors, what are they going to say? What's your traction? All this kind of stuff. You have basic 4 things they'll always ask you. And when you have that traction, and especially you have it from some of the brands that I talked to you about, oh my gosh, it changes the landscape completely. And that's the unique piece when I talk to you about what we do. That's how we know we got to be able to have a higher chance of success with the companies that we bring in, because we lower our risk by being able to validate something. That the key thing on a lot of this technology is that we think technology got to happen initially without being jaded, but then at one point you need technology to be funded somehow. Someone got to care and pay for a problem to be solved. And that's that sort of kind of the piece that I talk to you as an entrepreneur. That's what experience taught me, is that I'm not saying, go and talk to Target and innovate just for them. Innovate, but then later on, as you start trying to narrow down that technology, what is that first step? And who's that first client that's going to actually validate what you're doing, that you're solving an issue that's worth solving? And that's what we do. And that's why we also have a higher ratio of success with our companies. If you go back and you hear all the percentages of what is the success rate for startups and how many fail when they start, right? How many actually get past the 5-year mark. So that's one of the biggest things we do that we think our model is extremely unique because of that. That when we select companies, when we bring you through the process, is trying to make that connection. And then as a secondary thing, we have the resources and the money and the connections to help kind of shepherd that along. So that's, some of the fun things that I can tell you. Go to the website, look into it if you're interested, just to learn about it. We're very open. So if you ever go up to the Bay, you guys get my contact info, love, so you guys can come in, check out the space and inspire you. I'll bring it back to this area, that's the Bay, but what are we doing down here in San Diego? So what we've been doing is that twice a year, we drive in a beaming, I see them in the back right there, and what we do is we ask people to come and first we open the application process. So today, right now, if you go to Plug and Play San Diego, you can go ahead and apply. And you submit your application. And then between now and about the middle of April, we start looking and looking at the companies, making phone calls, seeing if you're a company we're interested in. And then what we do, we narrow down the pool for about maybe 20 to 25 companies. And then we ask them to come and pitch to us. And we give them 1 minute. And after that minute pitch, we decide if we invest in you or not. And we know that day, you know that day. And so out of those companies that we give them the ability to come and pitch to us, they select and they get to our portfolio. And what we do, we decide to put them either through something we call camp, startup camp, or we start driving now folks through actually the 4 verticals that I talked to you about. And I do those twice a year. Right now, the next one that we have scheduled is for March 14th. And the one we had December 9th, we've, lucky enough, and again, if you guys want to see a lot of the stuff, I want to send you to Vimeo. And there's a ton of videos there. And you can see some of the old school videos we had. You know, when we started in 06 and you see all these new people. Of course, we had the mayor of San Diego. We do a big check. Hey, you want to check, you know, kind of thing per company. So you guys can go in there and see our latest one, December 9th. And we had a great turnout. It was downtown San Diego. And the event is open. You can come out and experience the event. So the next one right now, we're scheduled to do it at Qualcomm Auditorium. So Qualcomm is going to host us, and we're going to demo our companies there on the 14th of May. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm just thrilled kind of seeing all these people creating, you know, their dreams and driving them. And it's very exciting. Some of the things that I can tell you, here's, let me see if beaming is in here. Is this your class? I think it is. And this one right here. So you guys can go and see some of the companies and their pitches, which I think will be really interesting for you folks, having to pitch quickly and seeing what people do. And actually, here's another gentleman here that we had him come out and give us a pitch, Brian Nolan. He was, I don't know if he's still part of the incubator here or not, but we invited a number of different people. Alberto Ocio, he started a company in medical device. Really unique, actually, company. Now he was actually received $9 million from the government in New Mexico, because they love his technology so much they wanted him to start his company in New Mexico. So, and he was in San Diego and he got literally stolen away from us because they wanted the technology and the growth. So you'll get to see all kinds of different companies. We got 52 videos there. You can go and experience and see, and you know, a lot of the talks. I'm gonna take you back in memory lane. So someone sees this lady right here, Barbara. Barbara, she is a well-known person now. If you go online and you Google her and watch her video, she first made her money with Pro Flowers. Okay, she was one of the initial people that started that, and then she went into Red Envelope and exited that. But even her earlier business right now is called Black. Her current right now, what she also does investments. She has her own fund in San Diego with her husband Neil Centuria, and they have something called Blackbird Ventures. And what I think that video is really fun is that you guys are going to see some things. So even experienced entrepreneurs have failures, and this is what I'm telling you is that the key about it is what you learn from those failures. This is what this game is about, not to give up, just to keep moving. But Barbara came to us back in 2009 and talked to us about her started a business called San Diego News Network. And there's also something similar to that, which she started at the same time in Riverside, San Diego Riverside Network, I think. It was kind of something like Patch, and that was like in 2009. Royal fail. Royal one. It was a bad deal. And she had a lot of money, a lot of experience, and she came and talked to us about first launching her business. She was excited, so we had her when a lot of people came out actually to Startup Circle and announced they were starting their businesses at our events, which was kind of cool. It just didn't happen, but she well experienced, came out, and then later came back after she launched the business and told us what happened, why it fell. She did not want us to take that because of liability issues, I guess, with what happened with the dissolution of the business. But that's the kinds of things that I'm about, is just learning. You know, I don't have the silver bullet about what's going to make your business successful. I can just share with you what's worked for me. And ultimately what keeps me charged every day to keep doing this. Another person that I think would be interesting for you guys to watch a video of. So Barbara, again, if you look her up, she's doing a lot of awesome stuff in town. let me see, this gentleman right here, Mitch Thrower. Mitch Thrower, he started a number of different companies, but one that he's really well known for was called Active Network. And have you anyone heard of Active Network? Yeah? So the few that have is that he created a platform where you register for any marathons or any kind of events that you want to, like rock and roll marathon, if you want to go and do that. The platform that was doing registrations was started by this guy. Became a multi-million-dollar company, is public. He sold that and started a couple other businesses. And he came out and started just sharing with us, here's the new businesses that I have. And he started a company named Bump now, and now evolves a different name now. Bump.com has become something new. But my point to you, go through these videos and you'll see, like this company, we put money into it, failed. Royal failed. And that one was not because the group was not good. They were creating, it was called Web Celeb. And the cool thing about this company, which I love, is about musicians. These guys were musicians, they were cool, they loved technology, and they created an exchange where if you're creating music or you're starting a song, you can put it out there. Instead of going to a label, you buy a small royalty right on that song. So if you went online and you bought that song, you had a specific royalty ownership on that specific song. Very unique, like an exchange for it. And what killed them was a lawsuit. It wasn't the tag, it was a lawsuit. And it got in trail to a whole lawsuit. It took 2 years, and we ended up having to fold because we didn't want to put the money into more fighting over the IP and the name. Actually, the name was a big deal. We got sued by a company in LA that they said they had the rights to Web Celeb. So there's all these things that can happen, but again, the journey just teaches you all the things, and it's more about, do you give up or do you move on? And of course, the founders of this company, now they're on their third now, since we started this. And then let me see, what other company will be neat for you guys to look at besides that? So go to Vimeo, go to the Startup Circle channel. There's Mitch again. And let me see who else is there. Oh, these two are awesome stories. And you guys gotta definitely listen to these ones. Mike Alpert. Met him when his company was 6 people. It's called Brightscope. You look in San Diego. Raised, right now they're over probably $40 million raised. Maybe about 80 employees now. When we met them, they were just 6 people in their office. And it's 2 brothers. And literally what they did, does anyone here has a 401k? You guys know what a 401k is, a retirement plan. If you do traditional investment and you want to put it into a fund, there's all these ratings on the fund. So if you go out there and you talk to your financial advisor, if you have one, they tell you, well, this fund is this kind of risk level, here's how they spend money, here's the fees on that fund, so if you put your money, how much is invested, how much is in fees. That's a requirement. What they realized, if you have a 401k, which most companies are the ones that create the 401k, it normally gets invested into their stock or specific things the company is driving. There was not a rating system for 401ks. No one has done that. And they're realizing why. So if I'm putting my money in a 401k and I can't tell how much I'm being charged for the administration of the 401k, I want to know. Why can't I know? And these guys had to go to Washington, go into Congress, and fight under the Freedom of Information Act to fight to get access from the corporations to give them the files to see what they were actually charging for all these 401ks, because they did not want to share this. Because they did not want their 401 compared. So like if I'm Disney, I work at Disney, and then I work at, I don't know, Fox Studios or whatever other business that has a similar 401k. What this guy started doing is comparing them and saying, the 401k at Disney, this is the expenses, this is the stars they've got, versus the one at a different company. So now they started creating, in a way, they were holding them accountable how well they were managed. Most people didn't know. Sounds basic, but not. And through that, they made a ton of money. Because who was paying for this now? The companies that administrate the 401k. Now they made it a standard for them. So think about what people would do. The kind of businesses, I would never dream 401k rating. What the hell is that? And they create a whole business behind it. Really unique, up-and-coming company, very successful. Reyes was down in San Diego. This guy, I remember in 2009, we were at the UTC Mall in San Diego, And I'm sitting right side of the food court, and he's pitching me this business. He's like, Robert, come here. Let's have some coffee. Let's talk about this great idea. Think about this. You have your phone, and there's going to be this box. And you're going to go up to this box, and you're going to take your phone, and you're going to put it inside the box, and it's going to give you a quote on how much I would pay you to recycle your phone. I'm going like, shit, okay, sounds interesting, but why is it exciting? I'm going, so he's pitching me about it. So now if you're going to move forward to this thing, at the time, the initial name he pitched me was called Remobile. That was the name of the company. Now, if you fast forward and you look at this, they actually went into a place called Evo Nexus. That's kind of where they put their place. It's called Eco-ATM. And if you look at that now, that company became a super large company. And if you go to some of the malls, what they do is you actually plug in they did games now, they're doing different kinds of tablets and phones. And what they do is that you plug in your phone in there, in real time they do give you a quote to recycle your phone. So a lot of people have a crack or an old generation iPhone or different kinds of phones. They'll real time give you cash. But here's the key about the model they created. It sounds very simple, but I was asking them, so how are you going to make money on this? I'm like, I get what you're doing, but how do I make money? Now here's the secret sauce a lot of people didn't know about. And what I love that was easy is that real time, as you put your phone and you plug it in, they are checking in the second-hand market, selling what the cost of that phone is. If someone went and refurbished that phone and sold it to a third world country. So they were taking either some of those phones, refurbishing them, and there was a higher value of that phone at a secondary market, or the parts of that, some of the first generation iPhones had precious metals in them. So just the value of the precious metals inside the phone, they could take those phones and resell them for the parts associated with that. So they knew they had a margin. So real time, as you plug in your phone, they checked real time in the marketplace and know how much they could get for that phone. I was like, wow, that is kind of cool. And the technology to create the connection between resellers and buyers, and that's what made their business. And they went through 3 iterations to make it really customer friendly. And that was a great model. So just hear about his story and what he was doing with Eco-ATM and Remobile and how that evolved. But again, just to tell you, there's so many different kinds of businesses that really kind of have blown me away that I never thought. The ones that I thought they're going to be winners, they were dogs. They just sucked. And thoughts that I thought was some of this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard, and they make it. So I can tell you again, it's just, I wish I could tell you I can pick a winner or a loser, but what I'm getting better at is just more knowing what elements to put around a company, and also getting a feel for the chemistry and the drive for the startup founders and how they're driving that business. And that's sort of kind of the themes that we're starting to see and how to mitigate those things, putting the right elements around it to help it get there faster. I think a final thing, I'll talk about the videos, and then I'll ask you some questions because I want to hear from you guys, is about this guy. Has anybody heard of the book called The E-Myth? Wow, a couple. Wow, good job. For those students, look it up. It's an easy read. That's the author of The E-Myth. Okay, Michael Gerber. And if you hear his story, I think he's also, for those entrepreneurs, you should read his book. I'm not going to ask if you agree with his philosophy or not. It's just a really easy read. Listen to his philosophy about entrepreneurship. And I found it very interesting. The biggest thing he talks about there's 3 types of folks. And what happens is in life, when you get into business, those 3 types, try to start a business. And depending on the type that you are, might determine if you're going to either sink or swim as an entrepreneur. And he talks about people that are technicians versus the entrepreneur, business managers. And so he kind of creates a language to make sense so that you maybe can really diagnose yourself and see, what kind of person am I? Do I have the drive? Because it's not that you're born with it. It's more, where are you in your life to be ready to put what it takes to actually get a business off the ground? So it's more of a, like the Japanese say, what season of life are you? And there are seasons in your life, so where are you right now? And is starting a business the right season for you to start it? And so he talks about that. So I'll give you an example. He talks about technicians. So if you're an engineer, you're an awesome engineer. And I know how to engineer. But when you talk about a business as being an entrepreneur, being just the engineer it's not going to work. You know, and this is what you see a lot of people are naturally good at one technical, tactical, or they're technicians at something. And they believe that they have a job, oh, you know, I could get paid more for doing this. I'm going to go out and start my own business. And that's probably the biggest mistake people do because they're technicians. They don't know how to sell. They don't understand about customer service. They don't understand about financing. I can go on and on and on. And you see a lot of people starting their business and realizing, gosh, maybe my job wasn't too bad. Because now I got to do everything. And I am accountable for payroll. And I can tell you guys, that's probably when you know you've graduated into entrepreneurship, when you have to deal with payroll. That is rough. When you're looking at expenses and people are counting for you to write them a check, you know, constantly, and cash flow, oh my gosh, cash flow is a big thing. And I would encourage all of you guys to learn about that. The whole cash flow thing, oh my goodness. Revenues are great, don't get me wrong. Cash flow is absolutely important, especially in your early days. That's either going to make you or break you. And I learned that from experience. I wish someone had told me. But you're on a Friday, everybody like, where's my paycheck? And you were having to pay all these things. So again, just really read that, the E-Myth. Really great, easy read. It'll kind of help you understand and give you some context about entrepreneurship. But I really, really enjoy it. And then I'll pause here. Any questions? You know, I've been talking at you right now, so I want to see any thoughts, anything you guys want me to dive into about either what it goes into funding, starting a business, anything that inspired? Yeah.
Is there any like a template for your 1-minute pitch when you do your presentation?
Good question. So there's many different styles of how to do a 1 minute. So you got to understand your style. But one guy that does a really good job of giving you one is, I'm going to tell you, is called Venture Hacks. So it's a website. So I'm going to give you some websites. Venture Hacks. And there's a bunch of people that come in, entrepreneurs come in there. And they have tutorials and informational things. So what they give you tips on how to create a quick elevator pitch or a 1 minute pitch. The other one another guy that is also pretty well and gives you some good information is Guy Kawasaki. And Guy Kawasaki also is very focused about how many slides. There's no more than 10 slides, how many points into a slide. So those are two different interesting styles. I can tell you for me, at the end of the day, is what's gonna get you exciting is that when you struggle through telling your story and your business within 60 seconds is really hard. Because you gotta figure out how to get me hooked or get anybody hooked into what you're doing. So how are you gonna get me excited to ask for more? So think about this is when you're asking someone to go on a date with you. And a lot of entrepreneurs, I like this dating thing just because, I don't know, it just sounds good for me. People like want me to marry them sight unseen. Oh my God, marry me. Give me all this money, I'm amazing. You go like, I don't know you. You seem like a good person. You give me all these great slides and you tell me all these beautiful things. But I don't know if all of it's bullshit, you know? And so that's what I tell entrepreneurs. I like the excitement. Yes, you got to go and you take no for an answer. But the key is you got to really come to a story to say like, you know, you don't need to really sell me on it. The right investor and the right partners got to believe in your mission, especially at the beginning. Because there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting that got to happen that you need to make sure that you're able to attract people with the higher purpose of your business. And that is, why am I solving? Why should people give a damn about it? And then the last piece is about, yes, how am I going to make money? You know, how are we going to make money? And in software, I can tell you, it's a very interesting thing, and I see it evolving. At the beginning, people were not talking about making money. So you talk about Facebook. They never talked about making money when they started. And actually, at Plug and Play, we met with Facebook and we passed on Facebook. So it's only the ones that we said, like say the Facebook founder, we were like, oh, I don't know about that guy, you know? But you know, you just don't know, just personality and approach. And so a lot of the software guys are going like, we're going after users, we're going after exposure. But more and more what you see the wins, most of the wins, and again, people always talk about Facebook, talk about Google, but those are like very rare. The majority of the people I tell, when you see most of our wins, they're happening in companies that are anywhere making between $50 to $100 million in valuation and we get out. And I can tell you, as an entrepreneur, if you make $3 to $5 million, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, everybody's going, oh, I want to make $1 bajillion. I said, what about $3 million? What about $5 million? You know, And that's where I talk about that people get into that whole trajectory. In most businesses, you gotta be able to talk about how you gotta make money. You know, and so very rare technology that I see is like, yeah, money making is not a conversation. It's like you are changing a whole marketplace that we'll figure out how to make money. But I can tell you 9 out of 10 times, you gotta answer that question. How am I gonna make money? What is the initial revenue flow? And from where? So again, going back to your 1-minute pitch, is that you gotta at least give the excitement up, say like, here's my tech, here's what I'm doing. Whatever's gonna show your passion into that model, so you can kind of want me to say, I want to talk to you more. Let's get into more. And that's what the one initial pitch is trying to do. You know, force you to kind of be to the point and show me your passion. Tell me why that's exciting, and then we'll get into the details. So, any other questions? Yeah.
How do you form a team? What's a good resource to form a team?
Wow. What kind of company you're trying to create? Software, hardware?
It's a hardware software company. It's internet usage.
Okay, cool. So, have you heard of Startup Weekends, right?
Yes.
Have you heard of Startup? Have you tried them?
No.
Okay. So, easy resource called Startup Weekends. So this started again. Damn it! Started again in the Bay. I hate to give credit to the Bay sometimes, but they did start something in the Bay. It's called Startup Weekends, and now it's worldwide. And what they do is that, and you can go online and check. They have them now all over the place. And what Startup Weekends are about is they bring all kinds of people together. Folks with the idea, or folks that need, maybe I need to find people that can write code, or I need engineers that can actually design specific hardware. So try to create teams. So what happens is on a Friday, like now, let's say we go to Friday at 6 o'clock, you show up at this place where they're hosting the Startup Weekend, and you go and pitch your idea. So hey, I'm Robert, and I think I want to make shoes. And this shoes, I got to track how hydrated you are. And I think it's going to be awesome because this thing is great. And they give you 2 minutes. And then everyone in the audience is going like, man, I don't know about this idea. I think it's kind of cool. I kind of dig it. So at the end, they create about teams and say, Robert, the shoe guy, is over here. He who wants to participate in his team, and he needs developers, and he needs a guy that knows hardware. And if you did a good enough job, it's exciting, people will come to you and say, I'm a programmer, I want to work with you. So they come around you, and then what happens that weekend, you work literally all night on Friday, all day Saturday, all night Saturday, and then you pitch on Sunday. Sunday around 6 o'clock. And you pitch on what you created that weekend. If you created a website, if you create a prototype, because now they're doing hardware, software. And they pick winners, 3 winners that evening. And so I've been asked to sometimes just be part of the selection committee, so like, wow, that was freaking awesome. So we watch them pitch, and then we watch the things that they create out of this weekend, which is awesome. So my main thing for you on that is that you can meet some really cool people there. And the people that are going there, they're actively looking for projects. So that's one form I tell you to look at. There's a lot of other things like I really encourage. I really got to get further plugged into this area about what kind of social activities are going on between entrepreneurs. But in San Diego now, we really pumped a lot of different activities that are happening. There's San Diego Tech Founders. There is Geek Girl, and they do some events. There's all these kinds of things that are happening that you can easily, in a week, at least do every night you can do an event. And at those, you'll meet people. So I think that's a big thing for me. The mission for this area, for Temecula or Riverside County, is create that kind of community. That we have events where people can just come together with different skill sets and talk about entrepreneurship, creating businesses. And that's one of the things that I've been kind of really, fortunately I've been kind of too focused in San Diego, and I got to bring it more back to this area. And this is an amazing resource here in Temecula. I'm like, having this here is great. I got to tell you, this is great, and we got to use it more and abuse it. Well, that's what we got to do. But yeah, that's what I would tell you. That's a good resource. Startup Circle, of course. Again, reach out to me, and we have programming. And then I'll get into. I'll tell you. I'll give you guys my pitch why I think this region is amazing. There's 3 things why I think this region is awesome, and then I'll tell you about our 5 goals as an organization when I wrap up. But any other questions? So where to find members? 1-minute pitch.
So you keep saying we, right? All right. Do you work with a bunch of different angels, or are you working within Startup Circle you guys fund, or?
So what I mean by we is that within Startup Circle, I have a team of 5 folks. I got one partner with me that we're funding most of the companies. With Plug and Play, that's a really big machine. For San Diego, is 3 of us are the partners, and then we have a whole team structure that's built behind it to execute on the Plug and Play area. So what I mean by we, there's that whole effort behind what we're doing. And when you see the Plug and Play activity, there's 100+ folks working on all these different activities that we're doing.
Thanks.
No problem. So again, any more questions, please pepper them on. So the other thing I wanted to just kind of share with you guys that's interesting, at least for me, so I'll tell you about why I think this area or this region is really mature for just being amazing. So there's 3 things. One, if you look at other markets, even like Colorado, which is doing really well, you look at the Bay Area, is that when you look at the cost of living, if I had to go right now, if you went to Sunnyvale, or if you went to even some places in Colorado, specifically Boulder, and you try to pay for rent, and what it costs for you to get a good quality programmer, and what it takes for say, hey, I want you to be part of my startup, and they ask for 50% of your company, because they think they're worth that much. There's this whole effort and exchange in those areas that it makes it really expensive to start up a business. And I think in this region we have, at least in San Diego, you see a lot of the universities are really graduating a lot of great people with technical expertise. And I think the junior colleges and the colleges have great, really folks there that you can really tap and really drive into the startups. And so we got those feeders that we can tap into to the technical side of programming, engineering, of business. You can go on and on and on, and that's the piece that I think our region we can retain more of the folks here because they won't be as expensive, and a lot of them are here because also they want the quality of life. So I believe that starting a business in this region is easier than would be in the Bay. Second, and a lot of people forget about this, is Mexico. And again, I told you I grew up there, but what is happening in Mexico right now is that across the border, specifically in Tijuana and Mexicali, they are starting programming companies. And there's a couple that our companies actually do programming with. And what they do, some have about 100+ programmers. And what happens is, if you are in the software business, if you ever got involved in that, either it's really expensive to create a really large team of programmers in the US, or if you have to outsource it, you go to India, you go to different countries, and you have a huge time difference in the programming and communications, and also the laws. It gets very complex in creating code. And also, of course, another place that's getting really hot is the Philippines, also for development. But the key is that time frame and that lack of constant interaction creates issues. And I can tell you, we build code in India and some places in what I call second world Europe, and I got to tell you, when you get the code back, when you say, it's not working, I want that code back, you cannot make sense of it. And at times you got to start from zero, because the way how they documented the process, there's all these things that happen that you don't think about, and you just shelled out a couple $100,000 of work and 2 years of effort for doing that. So what we're doing with our companies in Tijuana is that they can come over the border, they can meet with you, you can go down there, you can interact, and they're bicultural. So the bicultural nature of it, what I mean by that is that if you go deeper into Mexico, Guadalajara, Mexico City, now you're in deep Mexico. Do they speak English? I'm not sure. They culturally understand how we do business in the US. It's not mañana, it's right now. So in the border in Tijuana, most of the folks there are crossing the border, and they listen to our stations, they get our culture, they're truly bicultural. So that's a really unique effort that you can tap into programming resources at a pretty reasonable cost and get the advantage to be able to do programming faster than other people, in my opinion. And then the other piece that Mexico is an advantage, they've always done a lot of manufacturing, and they got a really strong technical effort from production engineers, hardware engineers, but they've always been targeting Fortune 500 companies. So if you were a startup, have you guys seen a lot of the Kickstarter campaigns? You guys know what that is? Yeah? So you guys have any of you guys bought anything from a Kickstarter campaign? I want to see hands. Oh wow, I'm shocked. Not that many. I bought a ton of crap.
Yeah, but I also bought a lot of stuff from it.
But let me tell you now, here's my question. I bought a bunch of stuff from Kickstarter. Because I'm watching the tag, I'm like, now tell me what's happened. Have you received from that Kickstarter campaign the item you bought from?
Oh, all of them. Yeah, I was a top level contributor, so I received all of them.
Great. Because what has happened to me is different. For me is that out of the 12 campaigns that I've participated on, only 2 deliver on it. And I went for technical type of products. And what happened is the rest of them, as they were getting in through their campaign, let's say they raised $500,000, $1 million, and they realized they had to now, I got now 2,000 customers, so I got to deliver this product at this price. And they go into manufacturing and they go, holy shit, I don't know how to do that. I did a prototype, I had a great video, I have no clue in manufacturing. How do I do that? So what do they think? Go to China. So you see this guy's going to China, or ladies, and they're going out there, and oh yeah, we can do this, we can do that. End up realizing that either it costs too much to produce that item, or what they bought, they have quality issues with the item. And now you find them messaging going like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't hit the campaign, we can change the reward or whatever. And so when I bring up the hardware with Mexico, what's going on with the Kickstarters is that I think Kickstarters are great, but a lot of people are learning through Kickstarter going like, actually hardware, it's the reason it's called hardware because it's hard. It's really difficult to do. And so a lot of people are learning that stuff. So for me is, the hardware game, when they're selling something, you need to be able to have rapid prototyping and a different level of scalability. When I look at China today, China is a great place to go if you have a high volume effort and you have enough money to create on-the-ground quality control. If you can, that fits perfectly, and they have certain things that they're set up to be extremely competitive. But if you're at a specific level that you need to do what they call mid-level manufacturing, that you don't have the volume, oh my goodness, you're in deep trouble. Because you might not get the A teams, you might not get the A factories, and you're getting really in deep trouble, especially if you don't have the network out there. So with Mexico, what we're pushing heavy in the border regions is to say the reason why China has succeeded so well is that they have a really strong broker network. So if you wanted to go and, you guys heard about Alibaba and all these places, they're being really good about intaking the business, and they said, well, I don't know, we'll figure it out on the back end. We ship it over there, then who cares? They're going to sue us? What are they going to do? So what happens, they're good about taking those early business folks, but then what happens is, when it comes to execution, you are really screwed. And so what we see in Mexico, we tell Mexico is going like, come on folks, you got a huge opportunity. You're targeting Fortune 500 companies because that's steady, low-risk business. You need to start investing in rapid prototyping. And then do the mid-manufacturing, and you're going to capture a ton of folks. So have you guys heard of, oh my God, is Jordy, which is this guy, his story is amazing. And Jordy started a company called School Robotics. What is the name of it? They do drones across the border. Can't think of it. Hopefully the name comes back. His company now is huge, all around commercial drones. And this guy was a guy in Mexico that went to a TechCrunch blog and said, hey guys, showing pictures, this is the stuff I'm creating just out of taking toasters out of the store and creating these things. I need someone to invest in me $1,000. That's what I need. And at the time, the folk that was the guy that was the editor of TechCrunch said, oh my God, $1,000. This guy seems kind of cool. I talked to him. Fine, I'll give him $1,000. From that, Jordy and him started building a business. And now is a multi-million-dollar business right across the border between Otay and San Diego. And you got to go, and I can't think of the name right now. This is robotics and commercial drones. And he left TechCrunch to start run the business down there. And all because they saw the infrastructure for mid-level manufacturing in Mexico. So my point to you, I talked about the 3 things that this area has awesome is talent, Two, we have an edge that we can, if we really focus the rapid prototyping and hardware, and also the programming, that you guys can do a very cost-effective level, a early beta or an early prototype to create businesses. I think that's awesome. And it will be a really good, and so the main thing we're trying to just right now do that is share the information and create situations for all of you to know where to access these things, and then let the sparks happen. So that's the number two thing that I'm working with a number of folks to activate that and get you all you the opportunity to dream and try it fast. For me, it's iterate fast, try it fast, create something. Pitch me something that even if you put it together with a box and tape, just start making it real. Whatever that is. Even if it's a software, I tell software folks, my gosh, how we sold two of our companies, we had no back-end developed, zero. No coding. All we did is do a static page, create shots, and just, this is what it will do, right? But people seeing it, it just gets them over the fence versus just telling, look, imagine this. You know, you got to get them over that imagination piece. And that's kind of what I tell people. If you can try that and get feedback and iterate with it, it's great. So again, the ability to leverage the border, leverage the local talent. And I think the last piece that I think this area also has is that there is clearly a lot of support that we can tap within the universities. And not around talent, but around resources when it comes to ability to access some of their facilities. And I think when we have those three things coming together will be great. I don't talk much about industry because I think the industry will not lead, will follow. So the Qualcomms, even though Qualcomm just announced something pretty awesome, and I'll share with you guys what they just did. But normally industry doesn't lead, they follow. The entrepreneurs got to go out and create exciting enough stuff for the money to come, for the corporations to start putting money into it. But I think there's enough people motivated and moving into town, they are creating some cool stuff. So again, it's access to those facilities. UCSD has awesome facilities that people actually don't know about, that they're doing a lot of prototyping in there. San Diego State, the junior colleges also are creating a lot of different locations that are great. And I think here, what you see here in this location, what I'm actually tapping into Cheryl about, one of our partners right now, and that's an event we just had on Tuesday. I want to see if you guys can see, oh, that's the RSVP. So maybe I'm going to go here, events. Come on. And this is going to talk to you about hardware. So Katie Rass, okay, she is one of the ladies that out of a labor of love in 2009, 2010 started something called Fabrication Lab. So Fab Lab, I know we joke about it, said Fabulous Lab, but it's not, it's Fabrication Lab. And what that's about was something that came out of MIT originally. And what they wanted to do is to create around the nation, create locations where people like me, that I'm not an engineer, or I'm not someone that can manufacture, can go into a location and understand the basics of creating a prototype. From board making to actually doing metal cutting. So what they did is they started a mini lab in San Diego in 2009 and 10. And they grew it over time. And what just happened a week and a half ago, and that's heard with the mayor of San Diego and all this crazy stuff, is that they now open a bigger location right downtown in a specific, now a specific area in San Diego downtown that they're calling it the Maker's Quarter. And that's something really unique they're trying to do in San Diego. But that's where she opened up this lab, and you can go in there and you can get a membership for 75 bucks, a month, and you get access to all this equipment and people that have the knowledge to help you create a prototype if you want to hardware. So look at Fabrication Lab, and one of the things that I know, you talked about that, but my view when I see the current entrepreneurs, and maybe in this area, maybe it's my naiveness, but I think in this area I see a lot of people that want to create hard tech. You know, when I come into Temecula, I still get to see not a lot of software developments yet, at least maybe haven't connected with those. But I come across a lot of people that want to create hardware. And so for me, is creating also a situation here where it's easy to prototype and marry that with software might be very interesting. So I think that'll be an interesting thing for us to discuss about bringing something like that here to this area. But if you guys ever down in San Diego, check out Fab Lab. Go to their website, see what's that available. So again, hardware, software in Mexico, facilities that have that availability now down in the area. Really, I think for me, entrepreneurs, it's an exciting time because you got a lot more resources now than when I started. I got to tell you, my gosh, I think things it's not they're easier, but you have a lot more resources that you can tap into than I ever seen before. And so that's kind of the three things I think this region is poised for it. I think money is finally coming. One of the things that a lot of people haven't probably heard about, that Google Ventures has decided to move and open up a big location in Cardiff by the Sea, in San Diego. And they're opening in about a month or so. And that's also a huge thing, that the money's starting to come down from the Bay to start checking out what's going on. And so that's, again, a lot of exciting stuff that's starting to happen at Drive-Away. And I'm just really pumped to see what this area start doing. And I'll stop. Any other questions? Did I spark any questions to that? Yeah.
So what areas are you interested in investing in right now?
Well, I can tell you from the plug-and-play side, what we put money into, like I told you, is IoT, is auto technology, anything has to do with fintech, or if we have something in e-retail. So that's a retail application, but it has to be tech-based. We'll look at it. I think in what we started to kind of really, we haven't put money into companies yet of that, so that's what we're active on right now. The ones that we're kind of dabbling on and we haven't actively put money into, I'm looking a lot into drones. That seems very interesting. And drones specifically, we're looking at drones for commercial applications. A lot of people are, pitching stuff for either for hospitality and things like that to improve certain things. But I would say either drones and wearables. Something that has to do with the wearable space also we're kind of really interested in looking at. So, yeah?
The company is Iron Drone, right? Ivan Lozano? One day you were talking about the drone.
No, and it's
3D robotics.
what's that?
3D robotics.
3D robotics.
Okay.
That's right, Jordi Munoz. Yes, 3D robotics. You go to their website and see. You read the story behind this one. Is absolutely a great and inspiring story about how that company has evolved and what has been created. And talk about someone that didn't have a lot of resources. You know what I mean? So thanks for remembering that. Yeah, I completely escaped my mind. So, no more questions?
Well, just a comment about,
Yeah.
at CES, there's a rumor that GoPro was going to go into the drone industry.
Oh.
And they were denying it left and right.
Oh, we're not doing it. Hell no.
But the interview of him is that he flies drones on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
He's all hooked on them, okay?
That's a very interesting space, I tell you.
But the other fact is, in the booth, I talked to the head of software development and a few others. They are very concerned about security. How do you control the content? How do you monetize the content? So that's what I understand they're working on, potentially.
And you're touching two things. One is that you're talking about like a whole new industry that people don't know, and when it's starting to get big enough, when the government's trying to regulate something or figure it out, right? So, and I'm saying it's a bad thing, but it's just starting to get big enough, they start realizing there's something there. And then you talk about the whole conversation about who owns what, data and personal information. And that's even beyond drones. There's all this whole conversation about, you talk about monetizing people in Facebook, and is it Facebook's information or your information? And should you get paid for what they know from you? But this is a whole conversation that's going to be very interesting to see which way we lean as companies are trying to gain more knowledge from you. And like yesterday, we were talking about this, and now you guys know about this. And I got to say, I think it was either Samsung. I think it was Samsung. And you see them making their new televisions, right? And you have televisions you can talk to, right? You can now they're voice activated. You can do that's the next tech that's coming up, right? One thing people don't know about, and this is a whole big freaking deal, is they're listening. And when you go and sign up to say, yeah, I accept this service, what they're doing is, it says you also accept that they can record and own anything they're recording. So they can hear your conversations. So it was a whole conversation around, like, should they be allowed, and should that be more in your face of what they're doing? But this is all the areas, as you see this technology, you can either be afraid of it, or you know that over time, we got to try to figure a way to make it so that it fits society. To me, I don't tend to be as afraid of it. And yeah, I do want my personal activities safe. But is that balance of progress with having some guides around what society wants to do. And one of the things that I wanted to tell you about one of the videos that that I'm going to give you insight into what I like to invest in and the kind of businesses that I like to do and all that kind of stuff. I have built out philosophy over time. This is just my own personal philosophy, and I look into, I try to kind of see the companies that I'm putting money into and the businesses that I want to start that have this foundation. And I recommend you at least look a little bit on Robert Porter Lynch. And again, it's in the Startup Circle Vimeo channel. You can look at it. And this guy has been a mentor of mine. In 2009, it's a really critical year for me in my life because in 2009 I was doing 2 startups at the same time. So I was going, holy crap, doing that. And also I was recruited by a big corporation to help them launch a division. So I was doing 3 things. I'm on the phone all the time, Monday through Sunday, and I'm loving it. And then I remember, and I owe my life to my wife because, you know, I used to like to really work out a lot. I used to play soccer, run a lot. I was very active. And I would feel like a pain in my gut. I'd be like, oh my God, someone just kicked me or something. What's the matter? She'd be like, if you're whining so much, go to the doctor. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I twisted something, so I would stretch it out, right? So I went on for about 3 months. And then one day she came to me and she says, here's the doctor's appointment. You're going tomorrow. If you don't go, you're going to be in deep shit. I was like, all right, she booked it. I got to go. So I go to the doctor, go into what I think is a general checkup. Go in there, and the doctor goes, okay, boom, I come back, ultrasound, leaves the room, fist up, let's talk. So I'm thinking, oh, he says, what a wuss you are, you got a pull muscle, just take an aspirin, you're fine. And the doctor comes into the room and says, all right, you want the good news or the bad news first? I'm like, holy shit, well, I guess give me the bad news first. He's like, you got one of the most aggressive cancers you can get. I'm like, holy shit, what's the good news? If we catch it early, you have a high chance of success. So I leave that was like 10 in the morning, I leave the office and I'm like, this freaking guy's mental. No fucking way, I have cancer? I'm going to go and call my friends, I'm going to go to the Mayo Clinic, I'm going to go I'm going to get a second opinion. So I went to UCSD, I went out to LA, I went to all these different centers just to get a second opinion. Everybody told me like, dude, you need to do something. The key here on the cancer you have, you need to act now. I don't care where you need to go. So at that point, I stopped and I said, oh my God, what is going on? So I put my life on hold for 6 months. And I was lucky enough that I could do that. And I just said, called my partners and said, hey, I'm out. I got this thing going on. I got to focus on me. And that really put life on hold for me and really started asking like the people call the fuzzy stuff, you know, the touchy feeling, what's life all about and what's my legacy. But it really brought it into like my face going, shit, if I don't beat this thing, I'm done. And why I brought up to Michael is, to Robert, is that I had again in college, I had this professor that was such an asshole to me. I'm like, he'd just like be terrible to me. He'd be like, come into office hour, leave my office, I'm busy. Just terrible. And I just killed him with kindness, and he just, after a while, he put me under his wing because I was just persistent. And he introduced me to this guy. And when a lot of people I didn't know found out that I was battling that and beat it, thank goodness now to date I'm good, and took some aggressive approaches to be good now with that, and now I'm clean so far, so I'm really excited about that. Is that all these people came out of the woodwork and started talking to me, say like, dude, you need to be just really strong here. You need to be knowing that this is, you're gonna beat it, no problem. You gotta be emotionally strong for this whole process. So you need to kind of see this as a gift, an opportunity for you that you've been given, because it intensifies everything and it helps you focus what's important in your life. So I was like, oh my God, yeah, I hear you, but holy shit. So all these people started mentoring me, and this guy was been doing research with a professor at Harvard University for the last 29 years about trust and trust building, and how that applies to business, to all these different things. So he really kind of came into my life and started putting things in context for me and what the things that I was doing, how I was doing them. And that, I think that was one of the elements that also helped me kind of be strong and focus my philosophy and what I want to do moving forward beyond just my personal life, but also in business. And what I can tell you, the takeaways from his piece is that, you know, one of the things that when you do business across the world, there's different ways that people build trust. You know, and I didn't realize that, but we don't talk about trust because if I ask you, trust me, what do you think right away? not to trust me, right? You know, I trust that guy. Why is he bringing it up, right? So trust is something we don't talk about because immediately if you bring it up, flags go up, right? And trust is interesting. He started breaking down trust from a psychological level, from a way how we're wired, and also how we go in different cultures to build that, and how critical it is in anything you do. So one of the things that I do when I do my business side now, the investor side, and I look at doing my due diligence in businesses, there's literally, they create a structure to start checking off certain things that people are doing to build a certain level of what, let's call it trust, but change the name to how do they innovate? How do they collaborate? So I take the trust word out of this equation and we talk about collaboration and innovation. And one of the things that this guy's kind of uncover is that for you to collaborate, to work with him or to work with me or to work with her, you got to have a basic level of trust. And if you've been in an element that why I'm in here because I love to create. That's what drives me. I get excited when I create something. That act of creation is awesome for me. And so, but in order to be able to get to a point of creation, that when we are making something better, we're criticizing, we're chopping, we're doing, and we can be very direct into the innovation process, and you don't take it personal because you know when you have that context with me and the level of trust we have, you know I'm not meaning you any harm and that I'm not attacking you as a person. That I am actually challenging the idea and we together making it better. We built on it. So the speed that you can innovate and the speed with you can actually collaborate is all literally fueled by how that organization, that group has built trust. And it all happens behind the scenes. Because if you bring it up, the walls come up. And that taught me a lot. And what I want to do more in this conversation, I just want to make you aware of that. Because all the other stuff, you can go out and find business plan conversations and marketing plans and all this other stuff. But what makes all this stuff work is the human side. And that's what a lot of people don't talk about that. How do you know you can really work with someone or not? And you talk about the chemistry and the feeling. But we all train at a very early age through how we grow up. How do we shit test people? And the things that you look for, what are they saying? Do they look me in the eye? You know, what are they doing? You know, all these kinds of things. And culturally has a big piece. So I tell you, look at that. That's very important for me now because as an investor, so I'll bring it back to the investment side for me. Now looking at the trust element, what I look is to say, well, what do I want in a company? Well, I need a company that can have a group of people that can collaborate. A lot of people don't like about government. They'll say, no, I don't go over government. But they say, oh, I'm not good at collaborating. They're kind of slow. Or big corporations, bureaucracy. And people don't talk to each other and they do these things. They don't really create things. So for me, to create an environment where people can collaborate and innovate, if I put money in a company that I know the market's going to move, shit's going to hit the fan, but because they can collaborate and innovate, they're going to weather through. They're going to figure it out. Because they have the cultural element to move and create and move on. And that lowers my risk as an investor. Because you know what? They're going to figure out. And I know they're going to figure out because they're not going to start infighting. Oh, I own 5%. No, I should own 25%. And then the business is done. And so I tell you, when you start, really be aware about that. You know, how do you creating that base that as you start throwing people more onto the ship, that you're going to need to put in, what is that base? And again, I don't encourage you to talk about trust openly, change the name, but hopefully you get what I'm saying is that that is going to be a critical piece of what's going to make you or break you. Because to build a really strong trust culture, you need to know what is below the belt, as people talk about, or above the belt. And that's the thing that you need to really be strategic about and think about what you're looking for. How do you either say that's wrong versus what's right? And a final thing, what I can tell you in business, I talk about collaboration, I talk about innovation, but someone told me something really interesting. You know, what is business? You know, when you have a business, we talk about a democracy, right? So we're in a democracy, everybody has a vote and everything else. But in reality, a business, most of the time, is a benevolent dictatorship. So you got a few people that are really setting direction and vision, right? And either they're going to do a place that people trust where that direction is going and how they're driving certain things that they have power on, But as you see, a lot of the mid-sized and small businesses, you got a few people making really essential decisions for that, and they're not asking everybody for input on that. And so be aware that as you're an entrepreneur, you got to be actually being looked at as, you got to make some critical decisions for that business, and then create a situation where people can execute independently in helping that higher vision. So, so again, I think that's what I'll share with you about that trust piece, but I think is, I normally don't talk about it too openly about it because it gets kind of complex, but I have a lot of really detailed items that if you're interested I can share with you on documentation and ways to actually structure in a business. But this is what I look at in my due diligence. That's one of the big boxes I check off to see how are they doing this thing so that we know if it's a high-risk business for us or not.
Do you have views on employee stock ownership at the startup level?
Employee ownership at
Employee stock ownership.
Yep. That's a very, very, it's kind of gone in and out of style. And SAIC, I think, was one of the bigger companies that in San Diego that used an employee stock ownership as a big thing that they got them going. I tell you, most of the time, I see a lot of companies that do that. It really helps incentivize the employee base, that they feel have a sense of ownership in the business. So I think kind of how I would answer that for you is that traditionally now most companies do create a stock ownership pool for the people joining the business. I think for me is that it's all about rewards and effort versus reward. I don't think people should just be giving the stock. It's like anything, it's like earning that stock. So yeah, I think employee ownership would be an interesting avenue to explore, and it has to do with the culture you're trying to build and the kind of business you want to build. And yeah, I think in every single businesses we participated, we share on equity. We did share it, but we were very, very smart about at what point you were not. And because we want you to be committed, but when you're bringing people on board, what is that earn-out period that they show that they get what they're doing and they're a fit within the team? So I would say, yeah, I would say try it. I tried it because it worked for us. People really get motivated. A lot of people are, effort versus reward. How much more do you want people to put in?
How do you base that earn-out period as far as time value?
I tell you that's, again, you got to get into the details of it. I can tell you from my experience what we do is that depending on the position and what the skill level they're bringing, but if I can tell you from the companies that we got in there, we do at least a 1 year period. That's what we normally use. In some instances we do less because...
in increments?
That's right, yeah. And sometimes you do this, again, it has to do with, you have to know more details about what you're doing, but what is the skill this person's bringing on? Is it a programmer? Is it, you got to really understand, but it has to be an earn-out period. And then as the business gets to a more sophisticated level, as she's talking about, if you actually now create a pool and you're sophisticated structuring your business, and there's a lot of attorneys that can help you with that. And there's actually a center, is the Beister Institute, by the way. Well, you reminded me, you know about the Beister Institute, right? So the Beister Institute, that's the whole mission in life. So if you really want to look at that piece, and I believe in it, when you talk about trust level and all that stuff, the earning out is important. And Beister is literally focused about creating businesses from the beginning with this kind of mindset, with employee-owned business. I can tell you what I'm looking at, why we look at the employee ownership on an investor side level. So let's say we got a business that is worth $50 million, right? And based on the space that they're in, we don't see them, they're going to earn out or grow to a level fast enough that you can get any potential way to exit out the early investors. One of the vehicles that a lot of people are looking at is that you actually sell the stock into the employees, and that creates a potential time for early people in the business to exit out. And so I see some people using it as a potential level of converting the company down the road into an employee-owned company. And that's just as a vehicle people are using to exit out some of the early founders or some of the people coming in, early investors. So, but I encourage you to, if you're interested in that, you know it, so they have resources that they'll love to talk to you. Again, they traditionally want to look at businesses, they're already created, at least they got probably 100+ employees and a certain level of revenues to make it worth the effort. but it's something really to really keep in top of mind how you're going to share the love of the business. And I can tell you one of the biggest interesting thing also, as we talked about pitching, you just got me on a tangent, but when I see the pitches, which is really funny, well, this is the ones that you can really mess with people when you see so many pitches. I probably get about, in a year, last year I probably had about 400 pitches that I sent through, about. And you right away have some things you poke people on. And so when you see some entrepreneurs and they're out there and they're pitching their business, hey, we want to do this, we want to do that. And you ask the question about like, well, tell us about your cap table or how much you guys earn. And I can tell you find all the time, well, we haven't figured that out. Well, you haven't figured that out, so you don't know if you own 50 or 22%. And you see that right away, kind of how that can really unravel a company pretty quickly. And so I can tell you, if you're starting a business, and if you got a couple partners in the business, figuring that out up front is really an important conversation. It's really something you got to figure out fast. A lot of times we get into that and you see how that literally kills the business because they start getting into infighting. And especially the first timers, the ones that are doing it for the first time, they really don't think about it. So, all right. Any other questions? No? So I want to close with a couple of things now. So the final thing I would tell you about Startup Circle.
You said Qualcomm was doing something?
Oh yeah. So let me tell you. So thanks for reminding me. So one of the exciting things. So I talked to you about Fab Lab, right? And so look at that. They just announced that opening. So Qualcomm with a group called TechStars. Have you guys heard of TechStars? Right? If you don't, please look them up. It's a great group as well. They also, people go pitch to them. They get funding from them, and they are all over the world now. And great organization. And Qualcomm and TechStars, they have partnered up in San Diego with Qualcomm, and they're opening what they call an accelerator, and it's around robotics. And so they're opening applications, and you can be from anywhere in the world and apply. And what you'll get is about $120,000 if you get in cash, and then you get about $350,000 worth of resources from engineering to programming from Qualcomm in space to actually develop a robotics company in San Diego. And applications are open now, and they close, I want to say March 8th. So if anybody's thinking about robotics and looking at it, why not throw it in there? So that was something pretty interesting that's happening. What I really like about it, Qualcomm has done a number of different incubators, and I'm happy to see what they do, but I can tell you they had very little success with their incubation processes in the past. And what I like about what I see now is that TechStars has a really well thought through process of how they help the entrepreneur get excited. So I think participating in that Qualcomm TechStar model, I think, will be really unique and exciting. So take a look at that. I think that's really a cool thing. And then for us, one of the things that we're doing now in San Diego, we're going to be opening. We had a small presence physically in San Diego from a plug-and-play standpoint in Startup Circle. Now we're going to be opening in downtown. And we hope to announce officially the location, but we're looking at taking 2 floors of a skyscraper down in San Diego that will be focused around entrepreneurship, and we'll open up and bring our companies in there. So that's something that we would hope to announce in the next 2 weeks. So we're pretty excited about now opening up really a much bigger physical presence. We hope to have about 100 companies in there in the next year and a half. So with that, I guess what I'll wrap up with you guys, what is the objectives for for Startup Circle specifically? So again, difference between Plug and Play and Startup Circle. In Plug and Play, tech-based, it was founded in the Bay Area, and then I became the partner of that in San Diego and driving it really through the region. Startup Circle was my labor of love, like I told you, to find out and just meet with the local entrepreneurs. And as it's grown, the biggest things for me, the objectives for me is is technology agnostic, it's about entrepreneurship. And the 5 objectives that I've got in there is that I want in the next, was last year, so in the next 4 years, we want to attract and generate $1 billion worth of value in companies that we participate in our model. So we got 4 years to create $1 billion. So far today, we generated $50 million, so we're behind the curve, but we got to really wrap it up. So we want to create value of $1 billion in the region. The other one is that we want to be able to create, we want to be able to invest and nurture 30 companies that come from universities. So we want to support student-created companies. So we want to invest in the next 4 years in 30 companies. They're coming out of the universities. The other one is that we want to invest in 20 female-run companies. And that's one thing I can tell you for me. I got 2 young daughters, 7 and 10. And my wife comes also from a very entrepreneurial family. And specifically in the software side, if you guys don't look at that in the Bay, there's this whole conversation about women not being, you know, really a high presence in the software technology side. And one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is that actually I've seen a lot of really strong businesses being founded by women. And one of the biggest things is that we've got to create, when you go back to a lot of the techie type of events, they have a feel and a flavor that kind of cater to males. It just does, and it's done not intentionally, it's just the way it's been. And there's a lot of groups now, they're trying to kind of bring out of the woodwork a lot of the technical side, and women that are actually driving stuff, not just in technology, also in hard tech businesses, but really start driving and evolving kind of the way that women created businesses are being done, and how big are women thinking. One of the things that we found we've funded now already 3 businesses that are run by women, and they normally, women founders, and I know I'm generalizing, but what we've seen, they're not as quick at asking for something as male entrepreneurs. So what we see is that their businesses are further along, and they ask for a lot less than male-driven businesses. So a guy can go out and say, I need $100 million, and I'll look you in the eye and mean it. Right? I'm not going to laugh, I'm not going to be like, I mean it. And they might have not a lot done. And you have women that built a business and they go, I need $1 million. You know, I think I can do with that. So the amount of how they're asking is just, I think, is just experience and lack of exposure into that environment. And more is just create that environment where women can have the access and feel comfortable in that environment. So for us, is we're really focusing a lot and also nurturing female entrepreneurs. It's key, and I think that's where we see also a lot of innovation is going to come from. And the final one is that we want to invest in 20 cross-border companies. So we want to be able to attract definitely companies from Latin America that can set up shop in this region, and we want to be early investors in those. So with that, that's kind of our goal and objective as an organization. And with that, if there's no more questions, right?
Do the companies have to be local?
Meaning?
I mean, I'm in Temecula, but my 2 partners are up in LA.
No, it doesn't matter.
Not a big deal.
Doesn't matter. So with that, I guess I thank you this evening. I appreciate your attention, and if you have any questions, just come up to me, and I'm more than happy to answer them. Good night.